Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. All right, all you positive heads, welcome, welcome. Here we go again. It is a fantabulous Friday here in the studio as I record, and I am grateful, as always, to be learning and growing, expanding with each and every one of you. It has been an intense bit of that for me here lately. Between last few weeks, just like 12 to 14 hour intense days refining and editing the book like last minute before I hand it over to the publisher, which was really supposed to already happen. So having a deadline makes it so, yeah, it's just like this process is the most meticulous thing I've ever done. And, you know, I've made from music albums to, of course, Optimistic, the show, this show, all the creative things that I've done over the years. Man, the mental energy and diligence that it takes to really put out something that is as refined as you want it to be is a lot. So maybe that's why, speaking of being refined, why there's been some incredible amount of refining happening within myself in the process that I'm going to share in a minute, as well as synchronicities that have been next level, just intense energy all the way around. I don't know if you guys are experiencing that as well, but yeah. So, let's see, where do I want to start? I think, I'll start with, since it's Friday, I'll start with a little fun synchronicity story that happened the other night. So if you guys, I don't know if any of you saw on Positive Heads, the Facebook group, which, by the way, if you're not there, there's about 10,000 epic P-heads there, sharing, connecting, growing, supporting one another. So you can jump over there. It's Positive Heads with an S. It's a private group, so you can open up about things, et cetera, that you might not want, the rest of Facebook land to see. But someone a week ago posted a picture of the Demiurge, which is the creator being, according to Platonic philosophy, that emerged from the void to create and bring order to, this realm, the 3D reality. And those of you who've been listening for a long time know I have a original painting of the Demiurge that my dear friend Vajra painted, and it's a whole story in itself, which I share in the book, Golden Key, by the way. And you guys can go over to goldenkey.gift now and register to get the book, audio or ebook, for free on January 5th. And so anyway, I was there. I'm with my partner, Karen, who is helping with a lot of the editing because she's speech, therapist, and that's like her realm. She's really, really good with that stuff. So we're going through, and she's actually editing on the piece, the story where we talk about the Demiurge in the book, the synchronicity story, and how it ties to the cover art, and just whole wormhole there, rabbit hole, if you will. And as she's editing it, the painting of the Demiurge in my room, there's a light shining on it, like a painting light, that just clicked on and off loudly twice in a row and just like blinked at, I'd never seen it do that before. And she looked at me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm sitting here editing all about the Demiurge right this moment." And we both got, I got the most chills that I've ever gotten from head to toe in that moment. Well, fast forward an hour or two later, we're still sitting there, probably 2 hours later, we're still editing. Out of nowhere, her and I were saying, wow, that was like a communication from the Demiurge. What a trip. And 2 hours later, probably my friend Casey, who I haven't seen in years, messages me and says, "Hey, this is probably going to seem totally random. You might not even know what I'm talking about. But years ago, back at your old house, 3 years at least ago, you had a painting on the wall, and I'm trying to find the artist. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, what she was talking about, the demiurge painting. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You reach out to me out of the blue asking about this? I haven't even seen this person in years. And so, yeah, that just happened. And I forgot one piece. It came right after someone posted, or maybe I did say it. I can't remember what I say. This was like days before someone posted in the Positive Heads Facebook group a picture of the demiurge. And, and then I took a little video and kind of commented, et cetera. So, the demiurge is present apparently. And then last night when I was working on the book, there's a flash of light from through the window in my bathroom, which you can see from my bed where I was sitting. And it was like me and my partner again, Karen. And I felt like instantly like a pulse or something. It was like, I was like, did you just see that? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, not only saw it, I felt something from it. So yeah, some real transmissions going on over here. And I couldn't be more excited about how the book is coming and the information and to be able to distill some of these ideas and open myself up to be like, sort of a channel of sorts. I mean, we are all art, I think, is channeled to some degree, right? I'm not claiming some other beings taking me over or anything like that. But once you set the intention and open up that, okay, I'm setting the intention to bring through this message, this information that's going to help to hopefully awaken, millions of people, and I'm gifting it to the world, there's forces that come to your aid. And it's been, wow, what a refining process from the first manuscript to refining. And I'm just so excited about how it's coming along. So yeah, go over to goldenkey.gift and register so you can get a free copy. And then we're also going to do an abundance manifestation game together. That's a part of it. And very, very, very exciting. Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about our new sponsor, New Calm. As you all know, mindfulness and meditation are key components to being the best version of ourselves. However, I would say sleep is even more important because if we aren't well rested, our bodies can't repair themselves properly and we can't perform optimally or think as clearly. So when I first heard that the New Calm system has been clinically proven in over 1 million sessions to improve sleep and reduce stress without using drugs or side effects, I was excited to get it for my brother to give it a try because he has been having issues with his sleep for many years. The New Calm system is great because it uses cutting-edge neuroscience and consists of 3 non-invasive and non-pharmaceutical items, all of which are included in a monthly subscription that costs less than a daily cup of Starbucks, which will probably only keep you up at night anyway. So if you'd like to feel better rested and less stressed, head over to positivenewcalm.com, where Positive Head listeners will get 50% off a 30-day subscription of New Calm, which also comes with a money-back guarantee. That's positivenucalm, all one word, .com. Check it out. And speaking of refining ourselves, so not only am I refining this manuscript, this book, but also myself, there's the last few days, maybe 3-4 days ago, some serious refining happening. I've read the quote before by Barry Gillespie that says, "The path isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. You continually come back to the things you thought you understood and see deeper truths." And I think that's a really important thing for us all to get. That, it's so easy to get to a point like, wow, look how far I've come. I made it. I'm no longer capable of doing this, overreactive, whatever thing I did in the past. And, for me, getting agitated or losing my temper or having certain people like my brother, for example, that can, they say if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family, right? Those are the people who can normally push your buttons the most. Well, speaking of synchronicity, there's someone who lives here at the Mystic Manor who has my birthday, July 28th. Most of you have heard my crazy synchronicity story around my birthday. So this person has been simultaneously one of the most helpful people to ever come through the doors here, and of dozens of people who have been here, and also challenging at times. And definitely this that came to a head a few days ago where I just got into, we kind of had an issue, and I got into a place where for the first time in a long time, I was so agitated, I slipped back into old a behavior that was so like afterwards, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I was capable of getting that unconscious anymore. You know what I mean? And he'd push my buttons enough where in the circumstances and my overreactivity where I really slipped into a state like I was just like sort of horrified afterwards, like, oh my gosh, I didn't think this was possible that I could ever, it reminds me of me at 15 or something, right? And then I realized, and I remember this quote. And at first I was like, felt shame and like, oh gosh, I'm so disappointed with myself. And then I remembered this process and this truth that we are constantly refining ourselves and circling back. We spiral back. The path isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. You continually come back to things you thought you understood and you see deeper truths. So you are like a layer, you're like an onion and there's layers and you're going to come back. And these scenarios like happened with me occur to give you the opportunity to really ground it in. It's like I thought I had it figured out before, like, oh, I've overcome this overreactivity where I just am super over-exaggerative and over-exaggerating. I don't know if exaggerative is a word. If it is, I just made it up. Over-exaggerating and just being just overly, aggressive and just not cool. It's not the thing that solves issues, right? It actually fans the flame of causing problems. And so, this is something that what was great after sort of going unconscious, right? Losing my awareness in that moment, being unconscious. A lot of times as you go on this path, you become more conscious of your unconscious self, right? And then you course correct and you stop yourself from going where maybe you went before. And then, in this case, I became completely unconscious for a few minutes. And, instead of beating myself up for that, trusting and understanding the process and loving myself there, I had a few minutes afterwards of feeling really regretful, really disappointed with myself. And then I realized, oh, that's a slippery slope in itself. How about I love myself here? How about I understand this process and know what's great out of it? It sort of anchored in even further for me. Like I truly, truly believe I will never go there again in the way that I did in this situation. Now, could I be wrong? I certainly could be. And if I am, I'm going to love myself there again, right? And that is the path. What happens with so many of us, these things spiral back and then we're like beating ourselves up and I'm such a loser. I'm such an idiot. I know better, and then that becomes even worse than the 2-minute offense, right? So you're constantly being refined. This is something that is going to happen forever with you. So, give yourself a break, love yourself there, and do things that help you to become more conscious of your unconscious self. And in this moment, for me, using this example, like I said, I come away from it now and it's like, okay, that was my overreactivity could have had so much more of a negative spiral. If it's kind of like that thing where, you lose your cool. It happens with people getting really violent sometimes, right? Like where they lose their cool, they do this violent act. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, now you have to deal with the repercussions for the rest of your life. It's like, nobody wants that. So in this case, it just really grounded in for me, this experience of, okay, I thought I really knew I didn't want to, get in that overreactive state ever again. And now I really, really know that I don't, it's like, it's so not worth it. And so, yeah, that is a great, great lesson. So it's been an intense refining going on around here. You guys are probably dealing with some reflection of that in your world too, which is why you're tuning in. We're all reflections of each other and sort of mirroring each other's journey. And as I was thinking about this today and talking about this on the show, I decided to take a look for, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this sort of thing and reprogramming your brain, refining process of your brain and how you can become. I found this great clip where he's talking about, how you can become a vision of the future instead of the past. Because what happens a lot of times with this sort of thing is we see what we've done in the past and it's like, okay, that becomes the story of who and what I am. I get up each morning, I start connecting with these old ideas of who and what I am, and you end up having Groundhog Day, right? And so what I'm going to share here in a moment, I want to share with you guys a Dr. Joe Dispenza clip. I actually found it on the Motivation Hex YouTube page, but it's Dr. Joe's. It's from one of his workshops or something like that. So you can always Google Dr. Joe Dispenza as well, which I think that's his website, drjoedispenza.com. But he's so amazing. And, we were doing with my dear friend Kim, she was running when we were doing retreats here. She was doing a Dr. Joe day of workshops a lot of times. So what I'm going to share now is this clip, refining the process of your brain into the future. And I think I'm going to it's about 10 minutes or so. We're going to go straight into the outro. So I won't be back on to discuss, because I want you guys to be able to sit with what he talks about. And he also gives you some ideas on how you can, I think in the full Dr. Joe thing, he does a guided meditation, but he gives you some insight of how you can go and actually meditate yourself as well on some of these ideas and concepts that he's talking about. So I'd rather than coming back on, I want to just leave that with you guys. So if you're motivated, you can go and experiment with some of the stuff he's talking about. It's really, really powerful to help you understand how your brain works and how you anchor in, how you create a map of the future that you actually step into. You be it to see it, right? Like we always talk about here. So, all right, everyone, check this out. Hope you enjoy. Until next time, love you all so, so much. Journey well.
Greetings, everybody. Dr. Joe Dispenza here. Knowledge is the precursor to experience. And the more knowledge we have, the more prepared we are for a new event in our life. And if we can assign more meaning behind what we're doing, we always gain greater value. So I want to start off by talking about how most people live their life. It is a fact scientifically that your brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of all the things you've learned intellectually and all the things that you've experienced in your life. In other words, your brain is an artifact. Now, most people wake up in the morning and they think about their problems, they think about themselves, and they begin to anchor themselves into certain feelings and emotions that reaffirm their personality. And since those feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, because that's what emotions are, then people begin to ground themselves chemically into the past. So then they think neurologically within the circuits of their brain that are connected to the past, and they feel emotionally and chemically within the boundaries of those past experiences. And so then most people's personality or their state of being is defined by the past. And if thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, then how most people are thinking neurologically and feeling chemically are causing them to function as a predictable self tied to the past. Now, we can call that, for the most part, our past-present reality. Because once we anchor consciousness into the brain and body and into a state of being, then we could say then our behaviors, choices, the experiences that await us, and how they are going to feel will become very predictable. And so people tend to think the same thoughts, they make the same choices, they demonstrate the same behaviors that create the same experiences, all for the familiar emotion that's called the old personality or the old self. Now, this CD is about defining yourself as a vision of the future instead of a memory of the past. So then in order for you to go from the old self to the new self, one of the ingredients that helps you to do that is consciousness. Now, consciousness is awareness, and awareness is paying attention and noticing. So the more conscious you are of your unconscious self, the less unconscious you will go during the course of your day. Now, I picked two very specific times for these meditations. The first thing, when you wake up in the morning, I'm going to ask you to do the morning meditation because your brain chemistry is changing from melatonin to serotonin, and along with that, your brain waves are changing. from delta to theta to alpha to beta, from your subconscious to your conscious. The door to the subconscious mind opens in the morning. So if you begin to think about a new reality for yourself, you begin to think about a new experience that you would like to have, if you begin to contemplate a new way of being, and you begin to take some time out of your busy life and think about some future experience that awaits you, the mere process of thinking and contemplation is the building process neurologically in your brain. And so we are going to ask you to think about a future reality that you may want to experience, some change in yourself that you would like to embrace, some type of event that awaits you in the quantum field. As you begin to think about and speculate a new future event, the frontal lobe turns on. That's the crowning achievement of the human being. It's the creative center. And as you begin to ask the what-if questions, the speculative questions, what would it be like? How would it be? What future awaits me? What do I want? As you ask those frontal lobe questions, because the frontal lobe is connected to all other parts of the brain, like a great symphony leader, it begins to look out over the entire landscape of the brain, and it begins to select different networks of neurons that are connected to the things you've learned intellectually and the things that you've experienced as an event in your life. As the frontal lobe begins to call up all these different circuits, it begins to seamlessly piece them together to create a new level of mind. And as you begin to remind yourself of that future event, there'll come a moment when you'll get a vision or a symbol or a picture in your mind, and we would call that an intention. And as you begin to force your brain to fire in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations, you're beginning to reorganize the circuitry in your brain to begin to change the brain to look like that future event has already occurred. Now, your brain is no longer a record of the past. Now, in fact, it is a map to the future. As you begin to be defined by that vision of the future, you're moving into a future present reality. But that's not the end. Because in order for you to move into a new state of being, you either have to begin to experience the event emotionally. In other words, allow the thought to become the experience in your mind. And if thought becomes the experience in your mind, the end product of that experience is called a feeling or an emotion. Or, I'm going to ask you to teach your body emotionally how that future event is going to feel before it occurs. And as you begin to combine that clear intention with an elevated emotion of gratitude or joy or inspiration, of feeling unlimited, of feeling empowered, your body as the unconscious mind begins to believe and accept that it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're beginning to activate and signal new genes in new ways so that your body is now living in the future instead of the past. So as the body moves into a new future present reality, your biology begins to change because now you're in a new state of being. Once you're in this new state of being, I'm going to ask you to think about the choices you're going to make, to review the behaviors you're going to demonstrate during this day. One day, one lifetime. What experiences await you and how they would feel. And as you begin to mentally rehearse what that future day is going to be like, the hardware program in your brain by repetition, nerve cells that fire together, wire together, begin to change into a software program. In other words, you're able to reproduce that level of mind easier and easier each day. I'm also going to ask you from this elevated state of being to remind yourself who you no longer want to be, to become conscious of the choices you're not going to make in that day, because the hardest part about change is not making the same choices you did the day before. And the other difficulty about change is that we go unconscious. So then if you're conscious of the thoughts that you are not going to let slip by your awareness that causes you to return back to the old self, if you're aware of the choices you're not going to make in this day, if you are aware of the habits and behaviors that cause you to return back to the old personality that's connected to the old personal reality, in other words, no longer blaming or complaining or talking poorly about somebody, whatever it is, and then you think about the experiences you're going to stay away from and the emotions that bring you to a lower denominator, I'm asking you from an elevated state, because you're feeling differently, to look at the old self instead of looking at the old self from a lower denominator and a lower level. So that process of being conscious of your unconscious self, that simple process, allows you to stay aware. That process is very significant. At the end of the meditation, once you're clear of that, I'm going to ask you to remember that intention and begin to think about how you would feel if that event occurred. And as you begin to elevate your state, I'm going to ask you to broadcast that energy into the field, for whatever you broadcast into the field is your experiment with destiny. Then we will move back into that state of being one more time, and meditation will be over, and I'm going to ask you to get up as somebody else. The second meditation is a meditation for self-correction. We will already be moving into different brain waves as time comes along. Your analytical mind will slow down, your brain chemistry will change, your brain waves will change slowly from beta to alpha. And so this will be a simple meditation for you to review how you did during the day. Now, I want you to do this meditation just before you fall asleep at night. I want you to sit up in your bed or sit up next to your bed, and I want you to go through the meditation, and when you finish the meditation, it would be best if you could just lay down and fall asleep. That way, you're programming your autonomic nervous system and your subconscious mind even further into your future. And because your brain chemistry is changing, because your brain is changing in its circadian rhythm from daylight to nighttime, you'll already naturally be surrendering into this. And I'm going to ask you to review how you did. What choices did you make? When did you fall from grace? When did you go unconscious? How could you do something better if you had another opportunity? And then I'm going to ask you to put yourself back into that situation and rehearse a better way of being. What piece of knowledge could you use as a precursor to produce a better experience? What piece of knowledge could you apply in this event so that you can begin to change an outcome? And as you begin to rehearse a better way of being, you're beginning to activate and prime the brain further and refine it into the future instead of the past. This is how we self-correct. In other words, if you saw yourself giving a public lecture, and when you watched yourself doing it, you were touching your face or sticking your finger in your ear, if you observe that, I guarantee you the next time you spoke in public, you would refine your behaviors. So that process then of going from the old self to the new self and observing how we did then allows us to self-correct and begin to reorganize the mind into the future instead of the past. And then I'll ask you to think about how you would feel if you were able to accomplish it in a better way. Also, during this evening meditation, where you're observing how you did during the day, I want you to acknowledge yourself for the right choices you made, the better behaviors that you demonstrated, the new experiences that you created, the thoughts that you liked about yourself, and how you felt. And so take a moment during this meditation for you to celebrate the changes that you made. And that should begin to become the foundation of your future self. And then I'm going to ask you to surrender the whole process to a greater mind and allow your autonomic nervous system to begin to program your brain and body into a new destiny as you fall asleep. And the brain will consolidate those circuits neurologically so that your brain is now further installing the hardware into the future. And the chemicals that are released that begin to epigenetically signal new genes in new ways then allows your body to be conditioned into a new biology. The process is simple, and it's a great way for you to move from the old self to the new self. So I selected these times with the intention of you having the door open so you can begin to program your subconscious mind to work for you instead of against you. I hope you enjoy.